Next, from the Illinois Municipal League's annual conference in Chicago, a panel discusses whether it's time to call for a new Illinois Constitutional Convention. The question of whether to hold a new Constitutional Convention will be an issue voters will decide on the November 2008 ballot. This panel discusses what issues would likely be considered by such a convention and who would participate in the rewriting of the Constitution. This runs about 55 minutes.
I represent the 83rd District, and that's Aurora, North Aurora, Montgomery. I'm in my 5th year in the House of the Illinois State Legislature. I'm also the chair of Local Government Committee, and with that position, and my charm, of course. I'm sorry, I didn't meet all you guys yet. The league asked me to, thank you. The league asked me to moderate today, which is great. I know that some of our panelists have decided views on what vote they should make on November 5th, 2008, and I'm sure that will come out over the next hour in our discussion about the Constitutional Convention. However, the real intent of this presentation is to look at some local government issues that are relevant to the Constitutional Convention decision that we'll be making. On a personal note, I was 4 years old in 1970, so that was before Roe versus Wade and Combine, and no one had ever heard of chartered schools at that time. And there were no Latino members of the Constitutional Convention. I am the first elected Hispanic descent outside the city of Chicago or the county of Cook in the history of Illinois, and I'm still the only one out there. I have a colleague that was elected last term, Mr. Fred Crespo, who has some of DuPage, but majority Cook County, so we still hold that. So there are now 4 Hispanic members in the Illinois Senate and 9 members in the Illinois House. Let's first begin by introducing our panel. And what I'd like to do, they've given me a lot of notes to say about these great people, but I think it's best that we hear from them and their mouths and where they were at, and a small introduction on why they're in this panel. So we'll first start off with Nancy KASZAK. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Is this microphone working? Yep, it sounds like it. I'm Nancy KASZAK. I used to be a state representative representing the north side of Chicago. I was there for 2 terms. In other times in my life, I have been a general attorney at the Chicago Park District for about 6 years, and was also an attorney affiliated with the law firm of Ansel Glenk, Diamond, Kopenbush, or some other variation of that recently, who represents a lot of the suburban municipal governments and downstate governments.
Thank you. Next, we have Barbara Clark-Nash.
I'm trying to get this together. Thank you. I'm currently a professor emeritus of law at Northwestern University, and I'm a former practically anything you can name. A former, as a matter of fact, delegate to the 1970 Illinois Constitutional Convention, a former member of the Illinois State Senate, former controller, and former candidate for governor, obviously a losing candidate. Let's see, what am I leaving out? Just about anything else that happened in government I've done at one time. And I used to work in the executive branch also quite some time ago as an assistant to a governor. So I've done everything in the process, but I think my most relevance here, if there is any at all, is that I was a delegate to the 1970 Constitutional Convention.
Next, we have the Honorable, the on-time Lieutenant Governor of the State of Illinois, Patrick Quinn. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
I will. Which one would this?
You can come up here and use mine if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's an honor to sit to the left of Senator and Comptroller NETSCH. And
not many are to the left.
Yes, indeed. I was going to say.
You guys heard that right? Not many are to the left.
But I was lucky enough to go to Northwestern Law School, where Dawn was an eminent teacher and professor, and a very special person for law in Illinois in a variety of different areas. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to talk about this issue that will come up about a year from now, and I look forward to the discussion here today.
Next to the Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn's left is Derek Blade, He's an intergovernmental affairs person for Cook County. Could you introduce yourself a little bit?
I'm Director of Government Affairs for Cook County. Prior to that, I was Director of Government Affairs for the Chicago Public Schools in the City of Chicago. I was not around in 1970, but I'm very, very happy to serve on a panel with these individuals today.
Thanks for bucking me on that.
Sorry about that.
And last but not least, I'd like my colleague, who I look to as a mentor, John FRITCHEY, who actually authored House Resolution 24. If you can introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, I'm John FRITCHEY. I'm State Representative for the 11th District, which is on the north side of Chicago. I am in my unbelievably 11th year now. I've had the privilege of chairing the House Judiciary Committee. I was formerly the chairman of the Consumer Protection Committee, and as Linda was kind enough to say, I'm the chief sponsor of House Resolution 25, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which urged support and awareness primarily of the Constitutional Convention initiative on the ballot next fall. So I'm very happy, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I guess, that I was also one of Dawn's students at Northwestern Law School. So the continuity continues, but I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to first explain, Derek's going to explain to us there's some handouts in the back. If you didn't get it, I'll run and start passing them out, though. But Derek, if you can discuss what we're discussing today.
Thank you. The two handouts in the back of the room give excellent synopsis of what we're doing in November of 2008 and why. Very, very frankly, we're doing it because we have to. The Constitution, Article 14, says that the question of a constitutional convention must be submitted by the Secretary of State to the voters every 20 years if in the previous 20-year block that question was not given for voter consideration. The last constitutional convention question was November of 1988, and obviously voters rejected that call. November 4th, 2008, that question will again be put to us in Illinois. Section 1C of Article 14 says that it should be a separate and distinct ballot question, and the call of the Constitution shall be successful if 3/5 of those voting on the question or a majority of voters casting ballots in that election vote aye on the question. Article 14 of the current Constitution specifically outlines that the delegates shall prepare amendments or any revision to the current Constitution as they deem necessary, and all proposals that are produced within that convention shall be approved by the majority of delegates and then submitted to the electors in the manner that the Constitutional Convention determines. At an election within 6 months after the convention's adjournment. If the constitutional question is successful, the Illinois General Assembly at the session immediately following the conclusion of the convention shall provide for, if the question on whether or not we shall have a constitutional convention is successful, then the General Assembly at the first session after that vote shall provide for the election of delegates, which according to the Constitution is under the same rules as election to the General Assembly. 21 years of age, lives within the district that they seek to represent for 2 years prior to the convention.